And welcome once again to Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr, joined by Juan Zarate, our national security analyst. Juan, good to see you.
Bob, good to see you.
Lots to talk about, but let's start with Kenya. An attack there, obviously a very sophisticated and deadly attack carried out, we think, by al-Shabaab. What's the significance of this beyond just that one event?
Well, it's a devastating attack, but it demonstrates that the al-Shabaab movement, the group in Somalia that's aligned with al-Qaeda ideologically, still has life and has the ability to strike and strike very effectively and hard outside of Somalia's borders. Keep in mind, Bob, that Kenyan forces, Ethiopian forces, Ugandan forces have all been pounding away